What is the value of a moment? Those moments in life when you are given a choice? A moment to reflect on how you feel, how you'll treat others? Moments of boredom, moments of excitement, moments of love and joy, moments of pain and struggle. Pre-planning a big moment? Dealing with moments that, frankly, catch you off guard? Even just taking a moment for yourself can be a bit demanding. But hey, you deserve it. As business owners, these moments come faster and disappear quicker. And though some of those moments yield much disappointment, moments of success easily wash away all the down ones, even if it's just for a moment. Vallejo is currently having a moment. What that means is up to you. We have dealt with our share of down moments, but alongside those down moments are good ones that will last a lifetime. And at this very moment, Vallejo is calling out to you to support our businesses, our people, our home. The recovery of our city has begun, and now it's time for you to rediscover exactly what makes our city so special. This is the state of business in Vallejo. And our moment starts now.
Hello, Vallejo. I'm so honored to have had the opportunity to represent this great city for the last 10 years in Congress. While I'm sad that the Redistricting Commission took Vallejo out of my district, I know you'll be in good hands with John Garamendi. Right now, we're working to crush COVID-19 and get our economy back on track, all while fixing critical infrastructure projects throughout Vallejo. Projects like the Highway 37 and Mare Island exit ramps, upgrading the Mare Island Causeway Bridge, dredging the strait, and fixing potholes throughout our great city. Working on these projects help to set our community up for a bright future. Thank you for all that you do, and I hope to see you soon.
Good evening. I'm Senator Bill Dodd, and as your senator, I wanted to congratulate the Vallejo Chamber of Commerce for hosting this informative event tonight on the state of business in Vallejo. With insightful comments on the economy from Dr. Robert Eyler of Sonoma State, Chris Rico from the Solano EDC, Mayor McConnell, leadership of the City of Vallejo, and the Chamber, I am certain you will be inspired to join your partner businesses in putting many of these great ideas into practice in your areas of the community. Looking at the building out of Mare Island with the Nimitz Group and Southern Land Company, projects like Solano 360, and the many options for higher education at our local colleges, you can see the great things on the road ahead for our city. The many opportunities that lie before us are an inspiration to us all. Vallejo is a great city with greater promise in the years ahead. Best wishes to each and every one of you.
Hello, I'm Assemblymember Tim Grayson. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this year's State of the City for Vallejo. While this is truly an honor, it is also bittersweet for me. Due to the redistricting process, I will no longer be Vallejo's Assembly representative. I will truly miss representing the people of Vallejo, but I am sure that your future representative will grow to appreciate the strength, resilience, and beauty that makes Vallejo such a special place. I may be leaving, but please know that my work will continue to benefit the people of this great community. This year, I've focused my efforts on ensuring that housing production in California moves forward. That means more affordable housing and more housing that's affordable. I have shared the dismay of many as we've seen housing prices skyrocket and housing development stall. This year, I'm joining a number of my colleagues and working to change that. In addition, I plan to continue the work of the Green Empowerment Zone, which includes the City of Vallejo. While we transition our energy sector to a more sustainable future, we must ensure that there are good, livable wage jobs secured for all of our workers in the energy industry. As I continue this work, Vallejo will continue to have an impact in my decision making. It has truly been an honor to represent you. Thank you again for allowing me the honor of participating in this evening.
Hello, welcome to the 2022 State of Business in Vallejo. We are so happy you're here to join us. My name is Jackie Arnold, and I'm your 2022 Vallejo Chamber of Commerce Board Chair. And we are so happy to be putting this on for you today. Today we're going to be talking mainly about economic development in our city. It has been a very tough last few years, as you all know, especially for our businesses. Vallejo has so much pride, and we want to go forward strong and confident. Economic development is a key factor in a better tomorrow for all of us. I believe in our community and the Chamber of Commerce and fully support it. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Mayor, Robert McConnell. Our Mayor, Robert McConnell, is a California native in San Francisco and raised in Nevada City by a single mother. Robert's mother was a registered nurse at a state hospital in Auburn, California. To this day, he has sensitivity to people in need of skilled, specialized care and to those who provide the care. Robert was in graduate school in San Jose State working towards a master's degree in public administration when he enlisted in the Army. He served as part of the 9th Infantry in the Rocket Belt of Vietnam. He was decorated for his combat infantry service during the Vietnam War. Robert returned home and attended McGeorge School of Law on the GI Bill. He studied law to better understand the role of people, power, and government. While at McGeorge, Robert was on the law review and worked at the State Personnel Board. He graduated in the top 1/3 of his class. Upon passing the bar, Robert clerked for the Chief Judge for the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. Robert entered private practice at a law firm in San Francisco Financial District, specializing in business and commercial litigation. From here, he went on to become a solo practitioner in the areas of personal injury, business litigation, and bankruptcy. In the mid-'80s, Robert and his wife Paula moved to Vallejo while still practicing law in San Francisco. After the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, he moved his practice to Vallejo. He has been specializing in bankruptcy and business litigation since 1995. He has conducted personal seminars on business law, home foreclosures, and finance. When Vallejo was facing bankruptcy, Robert shared his legal, commercial, and personal bankruptcy experience, first volunteering as a consultant and then serving on the Planning Commission for 8 years. In 2011, Robert ran for city council because he did not like the decisions being made. He was elected and then in 2016 ran for and won a second term on the Vallejo City Council. Robert was proud of keeping the city on track during his 8 years on council through the post-bankruptcy period and insisting on more open and transparent practices. In 2020, he ran for and won the office of mayor. Robert took office in January 2021. So with that, please welcome our mayor, Robert McConnell.
Well, good day. I'm Robert McConnell, the Vallejo City Mayor, and it's my privilege to welcome you to this presentation about economic development, a little bit about what the Vallejo Mayor's Office actually can do for you. We're sort of the center point here. If you have a concern or a complaint, then pick up the phone and call us. If you have some difficulty with the office or any of the planning divisions or anybody else in the city staff, let me know. I can make some phone calls, and sometimes magic things happen as a result of that. So we need your input. A little bit about my background as well. I do have a degree in a bachelor's in public administration and a graduate study in public administration. I've actually started 3 different businesses. I'm still operating 2 of them, as well as being the mayor. So when you come at me with your concerns, I do understand that, having spent probably 4 decades as a business litigation attorney as well. But what the city of Vallejo is doing now on economic development is really quite extensive. Of course, you all know that we're trying to develop Mare Island. And Mare Island can be split into 2 different sections, the central part and the North Mare Island part. The central section, of course, is with Nimitz, and we're working closely with them to coordinate those activities. We expect great things to happen out there. The North Mare Island, of course, is much more complicated, and with it comes the challenges of sea level, climate change, and all of the other variances that are going into it. We're also working to develop a new specific plan, which will dictate what goes on out there. But more than that, we're working with the mayor's office and the economic development, the city council, to make sure that we're much more receptive to business interests. Because we know in the past there has been criticism, justly so, that city staff has not been responsive. We intend to address that through customer relation programs. We've heard the difficulties you've had in reaching people at City Hall, with making your ideas known, with getting the problems addressed by the right staff. So again, that's what the mayor's office does, and we can't do anything unless we hear from you. We're looking forward to some great things coming to Vallejo, mainly because of the developments of funds coming to us from the state and the federal government. And of course, as you know, we're looking at a wide variety of projects. One of them immediately to occur will be the interchange at Mare Island Way, and also the one at Discovery Kingdom on Highway 37. The 37 interchange will take place first, and of course that leads us to the image of our cities. We all know we need to pick up our city, and we're encouraging more people to do that. When we renew our contract with Recology, we'll be addressing those concerns more than we have in the past. But it starts with you and it starts with me. We need to develop the pride in our city again. We need to have a city that looks good. And towards that end, the city is already providing dump trucks and crews and volunteers to help pick up the game. And now we have people coming in to volunteer. We're trying to improve our roads. As a result of our most recent budget adjustment, we went from a $100,000 allocation for pothole filling to $500,000. We had asked for $1 million, but the city budget won't quite support that. We're also working, of course, with all the local Chamber of Commerces, both yours and the other Chamber of Commerces as well. We're in close proximity with our congressman, and we're looking forward to bringing in a new congressman with John Garamendi. He's already been touring the city, becoming more familiar with it than ever before. So we're very positive down here at City Hall, and one of the things we hope to change is when we can open. COVID has impacted all of us. It has impacted our workforce here at City Hall by probably 25% reduction. And what we're discovering, like you are discovering, is that people want to work from home. In fact, recently we just noted that 67% of the people who have worked from home want to stay working at home. That does present some challenges in the workplace that you and City Hall have to address, and we're finding a new model with which to do that. But as we move forward, we intend to work more closely with you, intend to work more closely with our state and national legislators, and of course our regional bodies. As you know, one of the great attributes that will help improve this city is the smart train that eventually will come over from Sonoma and Marin, probably on a high raised causeway, and then there will have to be a spur down to the ferry building, right where the Visitors Bureau is located. With that spur, people will be able to hop on the smart train and go all the way over to their jobs in Napa, Sonoma, and Marin counties. So we are becoming more and more and more of a regional transit hub. We're working very closely with Cal Maritime, who has great ideas about what to do with the waterfront. And if you've noticed, we're doing remediation through PG&E right now down at Magazine in Sonoma, where it's all coming together, bound by the old Brinkman's Marina and out along Sonoma Boulevard to the Humane Society. That parcel that is being remediated is 40 acres in size. And that would be an excellent location for some of our civic buildings that might be better situated there. So we're looking at growing, we're looking at expanding. There is a lot coming down the pike, and we hope to make that happen with your involvement. So enjoy this presentation today, and if you have some questions, please feel comfortable in contacting the mayor's office or the city manager's office. We're all one team down here trying to work together to make your business activities even better. Thank you indeed for listening.
Hi everybody.
everybody. I'm Jackie Arnold, and I am privileged today to be here with Marianne and Benjamin Buggs from Faith Food Fridays. I am here with Karen Finley from Alibi Books. I am here with Bill Keegan, the owner of Keegan's Tax and Financial Services.
I think Vallejo is special because of that diversity in this city. You have every ethnic and culture group equally represented.
So Bill, what makes Vallejo special to you?
The temperature. The weather, it's great weather.
So many things, but there's the history, the location, the weather. We love that, but it's really the people.
I am here with Clifford, the owner of A Man in His Hat. Thank you for answering our questions today.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you. What makes Vallejo special to you?
Well, for one, I was born and raised here. So there's no place like home. So.
I'm Jackie Barsotti of Sweet Treatments. We have an event space here on Sonoma Boulevard. We can do weddings, anniversaries, corporate events, family events, holiday events. We have a stage, sound system, lights, all kinds of photo opportunities, and we're here for our community. You can look forward to seeing us in 2022. We have a coffee cart that's going to be coming out to our parking lot, more pop-up events. We're mostly open on the weekends for our events. Drop by and say hello or reach me at jackie@sweettreatments.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Rico. I'm the president and CEO of the Solano County Economic Development Corporation. And James asked me if I could contribute to this event. And I'm happy to do so, although I'm very new. So in thinking about what I had to offer, what I arrived at is just to share some perspective about what I've observed so far. I will say that when I was considering taking this position, Vallejo was particularly interesting to me, and a place where I really would like to roll up my sleeves and work with my organization and all the stakeholders to help. Our goal at the EDC is to bring prosperity to people and to organizations, and we want to make sure that we bring prosperity to all people and all organizations. So just a little bit about me. I come here from Los Angeles. I worked previously at the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, where I ran their innovation practice, and also worked in workforce development, particularly with regards to the entertainment industry, which is a place where I spent the first decade of my career. I've also taught in inner city schools and worked on political campaigns, and worked in philanthropy. And so one of the reasons why I really love economic development is because it's a place where you can touch all of those sectors, and it's important to have an understanding of all those sectors and how they work together. And I will say, when looking at Vallejo and thinking about how we can support the renaissance of Vallejo, it's going to take all of those partners, education and workforce and the public sector and the private sector and philanthropy, working together, because there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of opportunity. So what do I know about Vallejo so far? I have met with Don Meyer at the Cal Maritime, which is a place that I didn't know existed before I went there. And as most of you know, it's kind of tucked away. To me, it feels a little separated from Vallejo. And I think there are some opportunities with that particular institution to get it more connected to the city and more engaged. I know that they bought a property downtown. I think that that's a real opportunity to invest in the community and get more connected to the community. It was interesting to find out that in addition to being a maritime institution, that they really train people in the field of logistics. And the candidates or the graduates are in really high demand when they come out of there. I think we've seen from the pandemic that logistics is more important than ever. I think all of us have a better understanding of logistics, often just because we couldn't get things that we normally could get. And so we had to ask why and pay attention to things maybe that we didn't normally pay attention to. And I think particularly with Mare Island and with where Vallejo's positioned, logistics could be a really important part of the economic recovery. And having Cal Maritime as the Cal State institution in Vallejo be involved in that economic revival, I think, is important. Also, it was interesting to me that they are the least racially diverse Cal State school in the most racially diverse city in the state of California. That seems like a missed opportunity as well, so I'm excited to see how we might support those connections. I also had the opportunity to sit down with Fidel and Onassis at the Carpenters Union, had a really great conversation with them, was really impressed with the programs that they're running, got a sense from them just how proud people are of Vallejo and how sometimes that pride might lead people to sort of think that things are okay as they are, even when there are very clearly areas where things need to get better. And I think there's a lot of fear around losing the affordability and losing sort of touch with the place that they've known for so long. So I was grateful to get that insight from them. They also shared with me the story of Factory OS and how that was, formed in conjunction and in partnership with labor. That's really exciting to me. That the owners and founders of that organization recognized that they needed that level of skill. And that they're actually paying livable wages and that they have a product that's successful. When I was on Mare Island recently, I drove around and I got to peek my head in to the factory, and I was just really excited to see the diversity of people that were working in there. And I think that that's a real model for what's possible, and particularly that the story of Vallejo has always been about labor, right? And I think that the opportunity is for labor to play an important role in the revitalization of that community and the economy, and particularly on Mare Island. Excuse me, I have to look at my notes for a second. So I met with Pippin Dew. Awesome, had such a lovely time with her. We met at the Mare Island Brewing Company. She connected me with Kent and Ryan, the founders. I got to ask Kent a fair amount of questions about what it's like to be a business proprietor there and the challenges and the opportunities. Found out that he actually lives on the island with his family and that they had renovated one of the officers' homes. Because for me, I was a little curious about who lived in that little community in the middle of an island that's some parts are derelict, and obviously there's so much opportunity for development. And then there's sort of the little idyllic little community in the middle of it, and how interesting that must feel. A couple of things that we talked about was, certainly the levels of environmental remediation that need to take place, and that's certainly an obstacle. And also that, finding that balance of historical preservation and what are the things that are worthy of preservation, and what are the things that can just be torn down and redeveloped. And at the end of the day, my perspective is, and this is the thing that I will always advocate, is people are more important than buildings. And there are a lot of people in Vallejo who need jobs. And so at the end of the day, that should sort of balance out more in terms of what the priorities are. And I think that there's a middle ground that can be found. Pippin, filled me in a lot of sort of history of Vallejo and some of the tougher times that they've gone through, and with the bankruptcy and some other challenges, and how that's left a little bit of a scar on people there. And it's something that Paul Kelly and I talked about as well, and I know he's going to speak a little later. I'm a storyteller. I think storytelling is really important. It's one of the things that I did in Los Angeles. I built an innovation festival called Innovate LA. That's purpose was to tell LA's story differently, because it was always known as this Hollywood town, and it was really the only thing anybody talked about. And in fact, it was always the case that LA was a town that had aerospace and biotech and advanced food manufacturing and a huge, actually the biggest garment industry in the country, and rich culturally, 60 different languages spoken in the county of Los Angeles. And so I built this innovation festival that was really focused on showing that you could really innovate anything. And I feel like this is where the times that we live in. There's civic innovation, there's social innovation, food, art, fashion. And I thought it was important to tell a different story, and that can lead to economic gains, right? And I think that there's an opportunity to tell a different story of Vallejo, where it's positioned. It's the welcome on the way into Solano County. It's that easternmost city along with Benicia on the bay. I do think that advanced manufacturing and logistics will play an important role. I think when Solano 360 comes online, and I understand that there's plans for a makerspace, and I feel like there's a lot of ways to incubate some small businesses and restaurants and things, maybe food trucks, and really utilize that space as an economic engine, but also as a way to tell the story of Vallejo and the story of Solano County. It's right there on the freeway, and I think that could be a really important component. And I'm hopeful that after a very long time, that development finally happens, and that it can really be a driver. Some other thoughts that I had. Paul Kelly and I talked a long time about, the fact that there is some resistance in the community of Vallejo to progress and change, and I understand that, and I understand that when I talked about innovation in South LA and in East LA, a lot of times I got a lot of closed body language, and what I understood was people from communities of color in particular, what they heard was, I'm going to be even further away from getting that job. I'm not connected to this innovation ecosystem. I am being left behind. So I think it's really important to get into these communities and actually do the work to find out, okay, what are all the things that we could have for everybody in this community if we had a bigger tax base? So that as we're moving forward with different projects, people feel invested in them, and they understand that there's a reason why supporting that project and not opposing it would ultimately benefit them. I know that there's a lot of fear, and I think it's justified, around gentrification, and it's a big topic in America. It was certainly a big topic in Los Angeles, and it was something that a friend of mine was tasked through a Bloomberg grant in the mayor's office with examining with the team. And they were really challenged to understand, are there ways that we can manage change, right? Because gentrification is change, and change is a constant. Things will always change, and neighborhoods will grow and contract and ebb and flow. And Vallejo certainly has a huge opportunity for revitalization, but everybody should benefit from that. And the fact of the matter is if you don't own in these areas that are gentrifying, you generally get pushed out. And so I think those people have, justifiable fears. So what I think is awesome about Vallejo is the opportunity to maybe do something that's never been done before. I don't know what that is, but I think if we all worked together, we could figure out some strategies. I had one idea in terms of businesses, right? And I saw this in LA, particularly in Highland Park or Boyle Heights, which were historically predominantly Latino neighborhoods, that started gentrifying really quickly. And people who had businesses there for 30 years but didn't own the building got pushed out. And then all of a sudden, it was the $8 coffee shop, right? Something bougie. And had a team been in place, right, that can look at the data. You can always see when neighborhoods are changing, right? You can look at the data and say, okay, this neighborhood is changing, it's gentrifying. How do we get out and support the businesses that have been here for 30 years and make sure that those business owners can still own businesses here? And it might be that we provide consulting services to them and some financial support so that they can transition into owning that or running that $8 coffee shop, right? Giving them an idea of, okay, you're obviously an entrepreneur, you've been successful for this long, things are changing. Let's show you and maybe how your next generation can continue to be an entrepreneur here, and that you don't miss out. So I'm excited to look at things like that. I know that the Solano EDC will certainly be working diligently alongside all of our community partners. And like I said at the outset, our goal is to bring prosperity to everybody, and all businesses and all people. And we want to make sure that equity is front and center. It's something that I'm passionate about, and it's something that I certainly will continue to talk about. appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you all. I think you'll have a chance to ask some questions, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Jackie with the Vallejo Chamber, and I'm sitting here with Angela, who's the owner of Shirley's Care Home. I am with Tim Heimstrup with Napa River Realty.
Yes.
And I am here with Karen Amaro, the owner of Grocery Outlet down on Marin Street. Hey everybody, I'm here with Stephanie, the owner of Stephanie's Boutique here in Vallejo. Okay, I am here with Arthur from Capital City Pharmacy. Thank you so much for doing with us today. I am with Lori here, the owner of Mugsy's Pet Supply and Barkery. Hi everybody, I'm Jackie with the Vallejo Chamber, and we're going to be asking Mark Salvadori, the owner of Minuteman Press, some questions about Recover and Rediscover Vallejo.
I guess just continue to promote, continue to talk, continue that sense of community within the business owners and operators. Do some, sporadic, events, and make it more available to just go in and meet and greet one another. Because I still don't know a lot of people down here, and we've been here for 5 years, and very rarely do I have anybody walk in here and say, "Hey, I'm the owner of so and so," or anything like that. So there's not a whole huge level of community.
Basically parking.
Right now, just support us until everything gets opened up and things start. We have to start having events again and things like that. It's difficult to say. It's just keep supporting the local businesses as much as you can.
Yeah.
I need help with the website. Yeah, I need help. I need somebody to tell me what other people want to see. A lot of people like to shop via social media, and I don't know how to do that either.
Security. First in mind would be security. We've had some security challenges, and the breaking of into businesses, breaking into cars downtown is a big challenge and is a big concern.
Clean up the city, help the homeless, and make it safer to walk in the evening or even during the day.
Well, and I'm seeing it, with our building department, okay, our planning department, economic development, just a streamlined, make it happen attitude. Okay, complacency is the worst. I mean, when we're developers want to come to this town, we need to have that rah spirit and figure out what we can do to make it happen, not just watch it happen in another city or county. Because this whole town can be, a lot of it can be just turned upside down, and we can be all that. So I would say it's sort of a can-do attitude in working with developers and our city team working to bring some strong investment dollars to our town, just whether it's tech firms or whatever the case may be.
Hi folks, my name is Robert Eyler. I'm president of Economic Forensics and Analytics. I'm also a professor at Sonoma State University, and the Chamber's asked me tonight to talk to you about what's going on in the economy, both at the national level, at the state level, and then also at the local level here in Vallejo. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for having me tonight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the job situation at the national level, comparing the Great Recession to the current recession we're still recovering from, as you'll see in just a second. What this blue line shows you is it shows you the evolution of the total volume of workers at the national level. Starting in November 2007, it took about 78 months just to get that same volume of workers back in the United States. So to a large extent, this graph showcases why we called that the Great Recession. The COVID-19 recession, in contrast, looks like this. You can see a much sharper drop, this slow, steady movement after that sharp drop back up toward that red dotted line. So the COVID-19 recession, we use January 2020 in this case as a benchmark because we have data through January 2022. We're 98.4% back to where we started right before the recession began. We need to get that black line over the red dotted line, but we are basically have that momentum. The key there is that what we've seen in the macroeconomy otherwise might start slowing down hiring. And one of the phenomena that are out there is inflation. So these data are the rolling 12-month change in prices for consumers measured by what we call the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, which is the widest amount of goods and services that we measure as economists. But we also look in, and this is more precise for a lot of economists, look at what we call core, meaning we've pulled food and energy prices out of that basket of goods that we buy as consumers. And we look at that evolution because it tends to be a little bit less volatile. The key is, if you notice, from 2007 basically to somewhere around the beginning of 2021, inflation was slow and steady and kind of was basically underneath that blue dotted line is where the Federal Reserve wants to see it for most of that 13-year span. It was after about March or April 2021, we really saw this price index spike. A lot of it around car prices rising, energy prices rising, kind of leaching through a lot of other supply chain issues with delivering goods to market, and also housing prices rising. So one of the things we will see in a minute with a little bit more detail is that the forecast, which is the shaded area, is over the next few years, we anticipate inflation is going to go down. But part of that's because the Federal Reserve is going to start increasing interest rates. That's kind of the negative side of it. The positive side is we should see some of these supply chain issues clean up. And we should also see the spike in demand that we saw as we came out of the shadow, at least the immediate shadow of COVID-19 fade. That will also sort of flatten out. So we're seeing those red dots going down toward 2025, flattening out toward that blue dotted line, but not quite getting there. So one of the things that we're watching with inflation is, will we ever get back to a pre-pandemic level of inflation, or are we going to be somewhat elevated because of all these supply side consternation and issues that have come out of it as a result of the pandemic? Well, what we want to watch and see if this forecast is actually going to play out and these data are going to walk exactly as we think. Are prices starting to fall or stabilize? When we go to the grocery store, can we see that? How aggressive will the Federal Reserve be in terms of how quickly interest rates rise, because they think that this problem is going to persist and they really want to dampen this pressure, and they think they have the power to do that? Are wages going to continue to rise? So those labor market issues I talked about before are starting to show up in higher wage demands and also higher wages in markets. That can perpetuate inflation. It's a little slower in its effects than other changes that might happen, like supply chain seizures. But those wage increases will have some effect over time. And will housing prices continue to rise? We'll talk about that in a little while. One of the things from a policymaking standpoint that's very tricky for the Federal Reserve is, how are we sure we know increasing interest rates are going to have a large effect on these numbers moving down toward those red dots, or are we going to exacerbate the already concerning supply side problems? And so if you remember the time period between 1979 and 1982, a lot of the extremely high inflation the American economy faced at that time was a function not only of productivity issues and not as much being supplied as demanded, but also a lot of wild monetary policy that took place at that time, in a sense, trying to reduce demand where in fact it reduced supply even further. This is a look at the latest forecast out of the Federal Reserve, and we'll see those inflation numbers restated in just a second. But what I want to do is I want to move through the quarterly numbers, which are those three shaded areas, over the next, let's say, 4 or 5 quarters. Everything looking pretty good there for income growth after inflation, which is here abbreviated as real GDP growth as a percentage change on an annualized basis. The unemployment rate, which is classically the percentage of the labor force that remains unemployed, and those inflation data one more time. On an annualized basis, that shaded area is the latest forecast by the Federal Reserve for the next few years. You can see all those are positive numbers. Those are all actually around or larger than we were pre-pandemic in terms of annual growth. And the non-shaded area, which is just to the left of that rectangle, is last quarter's forecast. So there was a bit of a downgrade for 2022 from last quarter. There's a bit of an upgrade for 2023. And more or less, we're basically on the same path we expected a quarter ago, with a little bit of shifting in the first 2 years of that horizon. For the unemployment rate, we're going to move down to around 3.5% and kind of be there for the next few years, suggesting that the labor market has basically found equilibrium and supply is going to equal demand over the next couple of years. But one thing we want to watch for is how many people are actually available for work. What has happened within the labor force, but also what has happened to the composition of the industries that are employing workers. Has that shifted? Like, for example, away from things like leisure and hospitality jobs, as we'll see in a little bit when we break down Solano County. And this is those inflation data restated. So the national picture looks pretty good. There are some headwinds, but there's also a lot of tailwinds, and growth wants to sort of beget growth. So things look pretty good, at least for the next couple of years, though we should see rising interest rates that hopefully will come with a parallel reduction of inflation pressure. Let's now talk about the local economy and the state level as context to a certain extent and show some comparisons. So when you look at the latest labor data for California, Solano County, and Vallejo as a city, the unemployment rate of 6.1 in Vallejo is relatively good. It's not as good as the state or the county, but has been declining in step with both the county of Solano and the state of California. The biggest concern for economists is that top line. So we're still 700 people down from where we were that are either working or available for work in Vallejo from before the recession. And these are folks that live in Vallejo and are either working or looking for work. And that persistence of a reduction in the number of people who are within the labor force, who are available for work if they're not working or have a job, is something we will talk about later when we talk about the latest data with respect to population change. So population change is something that is starting to concern economists, not so much now, but 10, 12 years from now. How will we see a change in working families, and will that leave an even bigger hole in the workforce in a bunch of different industries because we just aren't generating as many workers regionally as a result of a change in the composition of who lives here? If we look at the same graph we looked at the national level, but just focusing on the COVID-19 recession, this is the movement of Vallejo since January 2020 over that span of time. So you can see there was a sharp cut, and Vallejo has sort of been moving up steadily since about June 2020. Here's Solano County, just sort of walking along, and then California, all three kind of moving at the same pace. So about 96% back to where we were pre-pandemic for both California and the city of Vallejo. Solano County overall recovering a little bit faster, but everything moving in the right direction. If we think about the jobs that have been lost, and also to a certain extent the jobs that have been gained, but mainly we're going to see is loss. What I'm going to walk you through for Solano County, these data do not necessarily exist for Vallejo County with any real precision. Monthly, these data come out for the county. These are the bad months. So if we compare it to January 2020 again, what these data suggest is not only what is the percentage change from that benchmark date of January 2020, but also what specific industries that hire within Solano County saw the most jobs lost, and then which ones have been reclaimed. So you can see that by May 2020, we had seen basically job cuts across the board, but we'd seen a little bit of a pickup. You might be able to tell that transportation and utilities and warehousing had actually picked up a little bit because we immediately shifted our lives online and we needed more last mile logistics. And we saw people shifting from leisure and hospitality jobs and retail jobs into those jobs that suddenly had demand, even though a lot of other industries were shedding jobs simultaneously. We move forward to December 2020. We see growth in that industry. We actually see retail in Solano County pick back up again a little bit as we got social restrictions lifted. We saw people go back to brick and mortar stores. Then through August, September, October, November, December in 2021, continued recovery with a little bit of flatness as we got toward the end of the year. That information category is a specific type of software tech and publishing, which really does not have a very large amount of people in Solano County. It looks big, but it represents a relatively small amount of the number of workers. Leisure and hospitality is about 12 or 14% of the Solano County economy. So if you look at that negative 21%, that's a lot of people that were working or a lot of jobs that were available before the pandemic that by the end of last year, meaning 2021, were still not available. Now up from the initial losses, but still down. Other services, hair salons, nail salons, fitness centers, as examples of those other services, down about 8.5%. But transportation, warehousing, utilities, up strongly, 15% from before the pandemic. So the strength in Solano County that had been building for the last few years before the pandemic in logistics and warehousing really paid off in sort of providing some balance during the time of the COVID-19 recession and in its continued recovery. We do have data about the forecast for jobs in Vallejo. So a business called Economic Modeling, or EMSI, which is now part of Burning Glass, estimates at the zip code level what the jobs might be 4 years out from the current date. And that plus what we get from EDD at the county level, and thinking about Vallejo's size as part of the county of Solano's employment level, you push all that data together, and the shaded industries is where we currently forecast Vallejo as growing to 2025. So postal and delivery basically means the delivery of goods and goods to homes. So that last mile delivery, that has the most growth. So that right now, most forecasters see that industry is continuing. Catalog retail, sort of connected to internet sales, that's growing. Transport, that's long haul, so trucking, still growing, all part of that logistics industry. And then manufacturing, which is great for Vallejo because that's a nice strength. We got food and beverage, and then we have construction and some professional services. So a nice mix is predicted. But if you go down to the bottom, this is where things get a little more weird. They're predicting things like retail to continue to contract, advanced manufacturing versus food and beverage, which is more what we think of as light manufacturing, and accommodation and food services, basically leisure and hospitality, all still contracting. So one of the nasty things about this, and this is compared to pre-recession, one of the things about this is that we will see growth in certain areas. And this also tells us where we might want to concentrate economic and workforce development resources when they exist to help out certain industries that we want to preserve in Vallejo. So there's a lot of challenges on this graph in terms of what the forecast might be going forward for the next few years. There's also some opportunity. So be thinking about that if you work in economic development or you're an employer in Vallejo. This is California in contrast. So when I show you this, think this is where that same prediction is taking the state overall. You can see the state is also shedding jobs in a lot of the same industries, but in things like healthcare, there's a lot of growth predicted, which is that red bar coming out of the middle of the graph, and then kind of a mixed bag, similar industries, I'm sorry, at the very top. Let's talk about housing. So housing growth across California has seen an amazing run since the pandemic began. Vallejo over the last 12 months has seen median home prices go up 23%, and this is as of the end of January 2022. Solano County overall is about 22%. California is about 20.2%. So Vallejo's had a really nice run if you own a home. And this is the last 24 months. So it has been just gangbusters if you own a home in terms of what's happened with median home price. Now, this is the current forecast for the next 12 months. So if you take that, let's walk back real quick, 33.3% growth over the last 24 months. And then Vallejo is predicted about another 18% growth over the next 12 months. Part of that is because, and you say, well, hold on a minute, man. If you're saying that interest rates are going to rise, how are you going to get this? Well, think about it this way. If you think interest rates are going to rise and then continue to rise, and you've been waiting to finally get into the housing market, you will probably see a little bit more demand pick up to try to take advantage of relatively lower interest rates while the getting is good. So keep that in mind. Generally speaking, across California, this is meant to show as many counties as being predicted by Zillow's research team, which is the data I use because those are the most publicly available, and they seem to walk very much hand in hand with reality. Most of those numbers are very robust after a very robust 2-year run. So generally speaking, housing markets look good, but from an equality standpoint, remember, these prices go up, renters get farther and farther away from being able to own. Well, part of that is the story I'm going to tell you about California. So this is as December 2021, we got data for the last fiscal year, which July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, the population estimates. Here's the number of new babies. Here's the number of people that have passed on in California. Here's the net inbound from other countries, which is positive. You can see those green columns are in the positive or above that solid black line, which means we receive more people from other countries that have left California to live in some other country. But what really has hurt California's population is movement from California to other places around the United States. And in net, this black line moving through shows you what's happening. California's population has been slowing down for some time. For the first time in recorded history, it actually is an estimate that we lost population in California in net last fiscal year. Wow. That leads to labor force issues. It leads maybe to demand changes in housing. It also means that we've had some shifts in how people look at living in California. But if this is a recognition that we're seeing lower demand in housing, that has not played out yet. What it probably is we're trading larger families for smaller ones, same housing unit. For Solano County, very similar picture. Here's births, deaths, net foreign, which for some time was really growing Solano County on average, and then inbounds from other parts of the US was making it climb even faster. So for most of the last decade, Solano County was slowly climbing up in population, has declined, and also is estimated to have lost a little bit of population last year. Again, the same deal. While we know people have come to Solano County and definitely have come to Vallejo, other people have left, and you're probably trading larger families for smaller ones. Now you add up all those data, and what's that mean looking forward? The national outlook looks pretty good. There are tailwinds, there's also headwinds, but I kind of think at this point, if you look at the data, we still have net tailwinds for the time being. We expect interest rates to rise. That's a challenge from an investment standpoint, but they're going to rise, I think, slow and steady enough where it's not going to be that big a deal in terms of changing behavior. And that's really the key with monetary policies. Whatever you do, you don't want to have behavior shifting wildly. This includes labor or housing markets, but also labor markets. But from a housing market standpoint, if you're a homeowner, things look really good. If you're not, there's this equity challenge we have, and this is starting to grab a lot of heat throughout California politically, is what are we going to do to provide more so-called housing equality? And there's going to be a lot of consternation about whether or not we should do that. But the shifting population is a big deal. Who has come and gone from Vallejo, and who will come? Will they bring a portable job? Will they bring a new business? What will they bring to the community when they come? And how is the community going to evolve in such a way to welcome those folks? So 3 key items from my mind. Think about economic diversity, where those opportunities and funding exists. So for economic development, that's really a key. The full utilization of Vallejo's assets, the waterfront, Mare Island, thinking about Vallejo as a transportation hub, meaning that there's a lot of movement through and around Vallejo. Are there ways of taking advantage of that? And ultimately think about Vallejo's role regionally. You need to define that, or it will get defined for you. And that's really using economic and workforce development. Solano Community College has that campus in Vallejo. We've got to utilize that more completely and just really think about building our own here, because we are going to see population shifting continuously over the next decade. And we got to think about how the economy around us regionally is going to change the city of Vallejo itself. So thank you folks for having me. If we don't get to your questions tonight, this is my contact info, and I'd love to hear from you. And I want to thank the Chamber again for having me this evening. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bela Matias. I'm the Solano County Health Officer. You know, Solano County has been dealing with COVID for over 2 years now. We were one of the first counties in the country to have to deal with COVID. You may all remember that in early 2020, we received plane loads of individuals who were evacuated to Travis Air Force Base. So we have had to endure COVID and its many changes over a long period of time. And our communities have had to deal with a lot of change in the virus itself, the disease, as well as in the rules that have had to be implemented in order to try to optimize our protection. Most recently, we have been experiencing a surge of COVID caused by the Omicron variant. So this particular variant is more easily transmitted than Delta, but fortunately causes less severe disease for most people. And over the course of the many surges and the many variants, that's sort of been the trend. Each successive variant that takes hold is more easily transmitted, but by and large causes somewhat less severe disease than the prior variant. So where we are right now is actually in a pretty good place. The surge caused by Omicron is largely behind us. We're definitely seeing far fewer cases being reported. We have far fewer people hospitalized, far fewer in the ICU. Our testing demand, or the request for testing, has come way down, and we're seeing a lower positivity rate. So really all of the signs that we follow, all of those metrics that we measure, are pointing in the right direction. We do seem to be coming off of the Omicron surge pretty rapidly, and we're not alone. That's true throughout the state of California. At the same time, the vaccination rates in our county seem to have plateaued. We have about 81% of our eligible residents who have received at least one dose of vaccine, 71% who are fully vaccinated, and about 47% who have received a booster among those who are eligible. So a little under half of those who are eligible have been boosted. And we have not seen equally high vaccination for all age groups. We have very good rates of immunization among those who are 50 and over. Decent rates for teenagers and young adults. Our rates among younger children, 5 to 11-year-old, is much lower than we anticipated. It's around 32%. But we are going to continue to make vaccine available for people for as long as there is interest in it. We are going to be doing pop-up vaccination clinics throughout the county, as well as hopefully providing it in an ongoing fashion at a continuous site. We're hoping to be able to use the town center mall for that. And then we are also hoping to, obviously, to have people be able to continue accessing vaccination at pharmacies and through their healthcare providers. We don't yet know what to expect with vaccination for children under 5. The FDA and the CDC have not yet approved it for emergency use, but we anticipate that they will. And then obviously we will work with schools and families and communities to try to deal with that vaccine need as well. So, I think a fair question to ask is, what next? With the Omicron surge having diminished very substantially, you've noticed that the state has eased up on some of the restrictions that have been in place for the last couple of months. And I think that that there are two realities about COVID that we can contemplate. One is it has been a very dynamic disease. It's changing constantly. So we cannot say for certain that we're out of the woods and that things will continue to get better, because there have been variants emerging from time to time that are concerning. And so we cannot say for sure that we aren't going to see another variant that makes us have to reconsider how to protect ourselves. But most likely, the other consideration is that if COVID continues on this path, if it does what other pandemics have done in the past, it will slowly transform from a disease causing a pandemic with large numbers of cases all in a short time period to becoming what we call an endemic disease, a background disease, a disease that we learn to live with. And there are dozens of these respiratory diseases that we live with year in and year out. And typically what will happen is that they operate at a very low level most of the year, but then they'll have a seasonal surge or a seasonal spike. Influenza is a classic example of that. And we anticipate that COVID will in time develop a pattern similar to influenza and to pertussis and to all of those other respiratory diseases that we cumulatively call the flu season every winter that we deal with. COVID is going to remain a dangerous disease for susceptible individuals, and I think that it's important to remember that. So we will continue to recommend strongly that high-risk individuals get vaccinated, and I anticipate that we will be doing annual updated vaccination for COVID along with influenza. And that's something we've come to terms with. I think that we will learn to tolerate it in this new endemic form. And with that, obviously, there will be the opportunity to reduce restrictions. So I do anticipate that over the coming many months, we will see a reduction in illness. Hopefully, we won't see a new variant. Hopefully, we won't see another surge of any size until next winter, along with the other winter diseases. And if that happens, then we'll be able to return to more of a pre-pandemic normal in terms of all of the restrictions that we've had to put in place. I will, however, remind folks that we learned a lot about this disease during these surges, and you can pretty much expect that every winter we will be recommending not only vaccination, but wearing your mask and social distancing. To be fair, we've been recommending that year in and year out for decades just to deal with flu, so obviously we're going to recommend it to deal with flu and COVID. So where we are now is hopefully on the precipice of moving toward it becoming endemic, but we are still at a place where we strongly recommend that people get boosted if they haven't been yet, get vaccinated if you haven't been yet, and we will continue to work with our communities to try to make that a reality here in Solano County. Thank you.
Trusted by thousands of satisfied Bay Area customers, A1 Guaranteed is family-owned and operated, providing HVAC, solar, windows, insulation, air purification, and electrification services to Solano, Napa, and Contra Costa counties. Diamond certified and a BPI Gold Star contractor, A1 Guaranteed can help improve the energy efficiency of your home and in some cases even eliminate utility bills. Find out about the biggest rebates ever and get a home energy analysis from A1 Guaranteed today.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Jesus from
West Coast Floor Company here in Vallejo.
Hi everybody, I am here with Katie Rose, and she is the owner of Fix Auto Vallejo. Hey everybody, I am here with Laura Pierce with Pierce Inc.
Well, the challenge is obviously not getting as much people coming into the store, right, as you did in prior years, and because of COVID, a lot of people are just putting projects on hold. Whether it's for us, it's flooring obviously, but a lot of people are putting projects on hold. So that's a challenge we faced.
So I'll tell you, COVID in the construction industry has especially been challenging. Materials that used to be readily available, we're looking at 6 months, 8 months, or longer lead time, especially on special order items. So
our biggest issue, I guess, has been staffing, because since we own a body shop, we have been an essential business. And ever since the pandemic has started, less cars have been on the road, but the cars have been driving stupider than they've ever driven before.
Hello, my name is Michael Malone, Interim City Manager for the City of Vallejo. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you Gillian Hayes, Interim Assistant City Manager for the City of Vallejo, and Paul Kelly, Special Advisor to the City Manager. Gillian brings over 20 years of experience in economic development and planning, and Paul brings an extensive career and experience in local government, including 16 years on the Board of Supervisors for Sonoma County. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Gillian and Paul. They're going to provide a brief overview of economic development activities in the city. Gillian and Paul, it's all yours.
Hello, I'm Paul Kelly. I'm the Special Advisor to the City Manager in the City of Vallejo and the Economic Development Manager. And I'm pleased to be here this evening to speak to you at the State of Business in Vallejo event. I'm excited to be a part of it again this year and look forward to spending the evening and answering questions with you. First of all, I want to just mention that one of the key elements that we like to bring to our economic development division is keeping an eye on our city vision, which is that Vallejo is a safe, prosperous, and vibrant city. and that focuses us on our priorities in the Economic Development Division, in job creation, sustainable revenue, improving Vallejo's image, revitalizing commercial neighborhoods and overall growth and diversity in the community, and some of the goals that we have to accomplish. So our development agreements, streamlining our development process, working through improving waterfront and revitalizing the waterfront, as well as the Mare Island cleanup and development, and supporting our small businesses. Business and businesses in our community are really key and very important to the overall vibrant community that we have. Business employs our friends and our neighbors. It provides wealth, ingenuity, and entrepreneurship. There's over 4,000 business license holders within the city of Vallejo. And we have some really key major employers that impact our community, like in the healthcare industry, Kaiser Permanente, Sutter, or La Clinica. We have universities in our community like Cal Maritime or Toro University or Solano Community College, all that are not only key employers, but educators and really a part of our community. We have an entertainment and visitors serving industry, Six Flags being a key employer, as well as service provider, and a lot of the hotels in our community. We have Costco and other key retailers that are employers and generators of revenue for our community. And on Mare Island, there's over 3,400 employees on Mare Island. Factory OS, Mare Island Dry Docks, as well as Alstrom, all different elements of being key employers in our community and improving our overall image. Some of the things that we do that benefit us in the city and for the community. So there's sales tax, and we track that, and we track that the benefits that has to our community. It provides for the resources to do everything from street maintenance to provide public safety. And retailers are really important employers and revenue for the city. All of our businesses, including residents, provide property taxes for the cities. And as we improve our business climate, those improve as well. Just to mention a couple of the top industries in our community, you can see them on the slide there. Autos and transportation are big. Building and construction, business and industry, and some of our top 15 sales tax generating firms, Costco being number one, but we're very happy to also show that Tesla has showed up, and that's one of our newer businesses that has moved into town, representing them. I'd like to really give you a report this evening also about just some of the projects that are going on in the city, and mention them, some of the high level ones, and where their progress is at. And also mention that in our planning department and our planning division, building department, last year in 2021, there were 1,362 housing units permitted. And already this year, and we're beginning of March, 648 housing units in 2022. So revenues are up, and we really see that business and our community is growing. I'd like to give a quick update on Mare Island. There's many that ask about Mare Island, and just quick little map that we have here just shows a lot of the ownership out there and some of the activities. And most of you know that we've been in an exclusive negotiating with the Nimitz Group on North Mare Island. And we're excited that this is a deal that is coming soon to the City Council, and that it's a good deal, and that we have a developer that's willing to invest millions of dollars to remove buildings, bring in fill, prepare the property for development, mitigate it for sea level rise, do a new master plan for the whole island, landscape the area, provide security, some estimates of costs of over $50 million of investment before they can actually even do a lot of development and improvements, money that the city doesn't have. The other element to this that we're excited about is it reaches into and gets a commitment from the developer to do work in the central part of the island. And they've called this Connolly Corridor redevelopment. It primarily sits behind the coal sheds. And from this little schematic of an aerial view, as you look at it from the riverside, the coal sheds in the foreground, there's a hotel, there's retail, there's a grocery store, coffee shop potential, there's a park area, it's pedestrian friendly, and it moves towards the west into a residential area and some multi-unit housing. The other item I'd like to give you an update on is Solano 360. There's many of us that have heard about this and what's going to happen with the county fairgrounds and what's going on with that. And the county and the city have been involved in an implementation committee, a couple county supervisors and 2 of our city council members, and they selected a developer, IRG JLL. They haven't finalized their application to fully define it, but I've got a couple maps of their concepts, which includes things like hotels, some transit areas, as well as increased housing opportunity. They have entertainment, retail, neighborhood retail, and some multifamily, as well as open areas, and including integrating into the fair and creating some facilities that are multi-use for the fair when the fair is going and for community use when it's not. Here's just a quick schematic of some of the space that they're looking to use and how it breaks out into studio sign, entertainment, retail, neighborhood retail, office, hotel, and multifamily, all of which we're looking forward to working with them in the coming months and years as they make their application here soon and gets processed. We are always focused on revitalizing the waterfront, and I think oftentimes challenged by that. Just a quick reminder, we look at the waterfront as northern, central, and southern. And so those are the different areas as depicted here on this map. The northern waterfront, as part of Mariners Cove, you are aware that we've been in a development agreement with the Callahan Property Company for a long time, and they are making their applications. It's still a residential with some office and retail, including a park. And that project is going to really determine whether or not it's going to move forward and be successful this year. Exciting on the southern waterfront. It's been years in the planning and preparation, but PG&E has been responsible for the ultimate cleanup of this area of the waterfront. And if you drive by, you will see that they are making great progress already as they've started working on Lot M and the boat launch there. And they also are working on all the properties to the south of that. And eventually, as they get closer to actually getting it cleaned up, the city will go through its process of determining what the next uses are into the future. Central Waterfront just primarily wanted to provide an update on Sika Hills, and that section is depicted here on the map. The city did authorize and sign a letter of intent with the Yokadehi tribe to facilitate a long-term lease for them to develop their facility, as shown as one of their schematics on the screen, is a restaurant, a community center, and a cultural center. So we're excited about that moving forward, and also in conjunction with the waterfront park that they're committed to helping facilitate. Many have asked about the Costco and the redevelopment of the old Cook property and the 50 acres just south of the current Costco. All the entitlements have been completed. The agreements to facilitate the project have been completed. This project is currently held up in litigation by a competitor to slow down the process, but the developer, in this case Lewis, is really committed to continuing to work through, finalize that, and also get the entitlements cleared and start on the public improvements that are really key to this project, build the Costco, and get going on the housing units that are necessary in our community. Just some of the other things that are going on that we're excited about here. The Eden project on Sacramento Street broke ground. La Tapatia in the building plan and plan check. DaVita Dialysis is almost final. We know I've mentioned already the Tesla dealership that's there. Country Inn and Suites has also been finaled, and El Pollo Loco has just been finaled, even though the picture here shows that they still got a fence around it. So we're excited about seeing them open up. And as we look out into the future for the coming year in economic development and some of our efforts there, we are excited about some of the ARPA funds that have been allocated to the city of Vallejo, and we're going to use some of them. One component of it is going to be through small business grant funds, similar to the previous program. And we're also looking to support, continue to support our businesses through the maps and other services and even outdoor dining and continuous. We're also looking to use our ARPA funds to do an economic development strategic plan for the city, something that hasn't been done for 10 years. So we're excited to move out into that and engage the stakeholders into the community, many of you that are watching tonight, and putting that together as we envision for the future in our community. Also working with our Economic Vitality Commission, that they've come up with a great idea to survey our businesses and help with business retention, as well as doing a city snapshot. We also recognize that there are challenges to development, and we're looking for ways to help that with the high cost, regulatory, supply chains, and then just balancing the return on that to make sure that it's worthy of that. Just wanted to reiterate the value and success of our Vallejo Small Business Micro Grant Program of 14 months ago, and that we're going to leverage the resources to do another one in the coming months, as well as adding on a restaurant resiliency program. Just showing you the quick map that we helped support that was put together for the community. And just a quick shot of just our little snapshot of pertinent information quickly at a glance on about Vallejo that would help attract businesses and improve our community. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to thank you for all of your efforts in business here in our community. On behalf of the city of Vallejo, thank you again.
Hi there. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gillian Hayes. I'm the interim assistant city manager for the city of Vallejo. I've been here in Vallejo for 2.5 years, starting out as the planning director and then moving my way up to deputy city manager and now interim assistant city manager. And my areas of oversight are the planning and building, development services department, and the economic development department, and the housing department, and also the homelessness program for the city. So in my time here, lots has been done. There's still lots to do, but it's a really exciting place to be working. I feel very thankful to be here. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about economic development in the city, some of the hurdles, what's the process, and how do we move things forward here. So as you heard from Paul, there's some really, really exciting things just on the cusp, ready to move forward for the city. One of those biggest things is the North Mare Island Developer Disposition Agreement, the DDA for North Mare Island, which is going to set our future path for the city here and growth on the island, moving pretty quickly. So that goes before council on March 22nd. So be there, help support movement forward for economic development. But how do you start out? So we've got a few things that are on the cusp that are moving forward. But if you're a new developer or a property owner, or you want to do something in the city of Vallejo, where do you start? So my first suggestion would be to reach out to our economic development department. For example, we just had a developer reach out yesterday who owns 5 acres. So what we do is, okay, where's your 5 acres? What are you thinking? What are your concept ideas? We partner them with an economic development division staffer, and then usually a planning and development services staffer, because they know all the zonings and the code requirements and the do's and don'ts. So we usually will have a high-level conceptual meeting, talk about market trends, what's going on, talk about the site, the location, what are the opportunities there. Sometimes these developers come to us with some of their ideas and we chat them through, talk about anything that may be a red flag popping out or any areas of opportunity maybe they haven't considered yet. And then from that point, if things are still looking good, then we move forward. We have a process. It's called the preliminary review application. So the prelim review application is a concept level application where property owners or developers can come in, give us concept level plans. Of course, the more detail they give, the better input they'll receive. But what we do is we refer it out to all of our city departments. And then those city departments all take a look, knowing that it's a high level concept. And they look at things like, utilities, improvements on and off site, curb, gutter, sidewalk, densities, other opportunities in the zoning. And then we get you a letter out that gives you all of the comments and the details on your concept project. So that's really an opportunity to just look at feasibility in a more detailed way than the first hour or so meeting that we have verbally. So getting that feedback usually helps steer the design for the property owner developer. And then they tweak whatever designs or plans that they have, and then are ready for more of a full submittal that's a little bit more educated and has some department review ahead of time. So that's kind of the process right now. What am I seeing as far as hurdles or economic development issues? Well, we all know the pandemic was difficult. Luckily for this city, we still did see some of these preliminary review concepts come forward. We have the highest number of housing permits we've had in many, many years. Things are still moving in Vallejo. Our revenues are actually in planning and building have increased in the last few quarters. So we're doing something right. We're opening the doors and the conversations with the people that need to get the information. But some of the hurdles, what you see really statewide, the pandemic is a hurdle. Fees are always a hurdle, impact fees. Every jurisdiction has their own traffic mitigation impact fees, their own school district fees, their own parks fees. So those can be challenging for developers, especially if they're a new developer and they don't understand that these are basics that anywhere you develop, you have to pay. So we do like in our preliminary review application to provide fee estimates just so that they have an idea of what's coming down the road at building permit stage after the entitlement approvals are all made. So other challenges in Vallejo, we've got a housing crisis. We've got staffing and employment crisis right now. This is a nationwide issues, but we're dealing with them at our city level as well. Really, for the city itself, staffing is still a huge issue. It's very difficult right now in this pandemic or moving into an endemic climate to attract and retain really skilled workers. We do have a great staff, and all the divisions and departments that I am overseeing, we have awesome staff, but it can be challenging when the workloads are really, really bigger than the staff capacity can handle. So those are some of the hurdles for economic development here in Vallejo. But really, with all of these projects moving forward just on the cusp here and moving through March, April, and May, we're going to see some real movement and opportunity in the next 1 to 2 years on these projects that are now moving forward that Paul spoke about prior. So it's really exciting because you know how it is. It's the ripple effect. Once 2 or 3 really nice, good, big projects get moving forward, then many follow thereafter. So it's great. We've got the La Quinta, the hotel. We've got quite a few housing projects. They trickled in and then just have seemed to boom. We're still negotiating on the Blue Rock Golf Course. Hidden Brook Golf Course was just purchased by a developer. We've got our waterfront still, and then Mare Island. So these things are pretty large starters for the city. So I really am looking forward to seeing this community's vision come to reality over the next few years here. And even though it's frustrating, we want to see it tomorrow. It's pretty exciting to have only been here 2.5 years and see the progress that we've made on moving some of these projects that have been sitting around for umpteen years, 10 or 20 years. Then in the last 2, we've really got some momentum going. So really excited and feel blessed to be a part of this community and helping, like I said, you all see your vision for where you live and work and play move forward. Looking forward to working with you all. And as always, if you have any questions, please reach out to Paul or myself. We'll put our emails up on the screen at the end of the PowerPoint and our phone numbers. We are happy to take any calls, hear any ideas, and have you part of our process as we move forward with planning for our economic development strategic plan and really creating that map for the future moving forward to bring your visions to reality. Thank you so much.
Okay, I am Jackie Arnold, and I'm sitting here with JD from MCIA Insurance, and we're going to ask JD some questions about Recover and Rediscover Vallejo. Hi, everybody. I am here with Raymond from Victory Stores in Vallejo, California, and we're going to ask him some questions today.
I don't think I would really change anything. We just need to update. We need to get in. We need to be more progressive. We need to look more into the future. Vallejo has a tendency to sort of just be in the same where we were back when Mayor Douglas was around.
If you could change one thing about Vallejo, what would it be?
More jobs. Something awesome on Mare Island. I mean, at this point, I don't care what it is. If it's a car manufacturer or a casino or whatever it is, just something there with a lot of jobs.
Vallejo. Home to history, home to hard work, and home to the hearts of those pushing to succeed. There's no question that these last few years haven't been easy on our families, our businesses, and those working to keep it all together. While all of the answers may not be immediately available, and we are continuously met with frustrations, broken promises, and uncertainty at every corner, we know one thing to be true, and that is what continues to push us all forward. It is the spirit that has been here since day one, the Vallejo spirit. So regardless of how you feel about where we are, take a moment to appreciate the hurdles we've conquered and prepare for the others that await us. Because that better tomorrow will only be achieved when we work together. The recovery in Vallejo has begun. Let's do our part by revisiting your favorite community park, reintroducing yourself to the flavors our restaurants offer, reawakening your imagination at Six Flags and our waterfront, re-educating yourself to the illustrious and colorful history we are all so proud of, and rediscovering all that makes Vallejo special to you.
So what'd you think? You know, as I was sitting there watching it, it occurred to me, which is not the first time it's occurred to me, when you're talking about economic development, you know, there's so much to it. It really is not about just putting a shovel in the ground. I mean, we all really hope that when we're driving down the street that we're going to see a lot more of that. But there's such a path that you have to travel before you can put that shovel in the ground. There's a lot of competing interests. There's a lot of competing factors completely outside of our control that greatly influence our ability to do the things we want to do right here. But what I'm hoping came through loud and clear from all that you heard, whether it was technical or fun, is that there's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of passion to see this community thrive, to use Kaiser's term. And thrive is such a descriptive term, right? Thrive should be for everybody. It should be for all of Vallejo, but it takes time. Patience can be really hard to hold on to when you want so much. But if you walk this journey one step at a time, and you look next to you, you'll see a lot of great people that are doing the same thing. So let's stay committed to this process of economic development. Let's keep highlighting our businesses. Let's keep fighting through those conversations where there is other points of view, recognizing that we're all reaching for the same thing, which is a better quality of life for everybody in Vallejo. So I really thank you all for being here for our video presentation, and what I'm going to do now is ask our presenters to join me up on here on the stage. If you have a question that you would like to ask, either something that you saw in here or a question that you came in here with, take your card and hold it up in the air. We do have some ambassadors that will walk around and pick up any cards that are filled out. But if I can now have Dr. Robert Eyler and Chris Rico join me on the stage, as well as Paul Kelly and Gillian Hayes. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this first question, and this one's going to be for Dr. Eyler. Now, Dr. Eyler, I've known him for a little while now, and I know when he does his presentation, these facts and figures can become fast and furious. So sometimes you're not always catching everything. And what I'd like for Dr. Eyler is, Dr. Eyler, what conditions, these conditions that you talked about, these economic conditions, what is the combination of conditions that need to exist in order for it to become enticing for businesses and entrepreneurs to create their new economic development projects?
That's a great question. So, when I've done some economic development consulting and sort of, read a lot about what's going on in terms of best practices, what seems to be the sort of three major conditions is one, you need to have a regional workforce that can be either easily trained or is already trained for the specific types of industries that you see growing in your community. So you need that workforce piece. The second piece is you need venture capital. You need people that are willing to finance entrepreneurship outside of lending. You need to give both choices to entrepreneurs because they don't necessarily just want to get it from banks. They want to have choice, and it provides for a more competitive financial environment. And the third is you usually need a partnership in local government, meaning that if you're going to have, there's certain physical assets that are very unique to your community. You want to make sure that local government is a partner in moving forward and basically embracing the entrepreneur, being able to take advantage of those assets as best as you can for the community. When all those three things are in sync, you get things like Cupertino, San Jose, what's slowly happening around Sacramento if you move back west toward Davis, what you've seen in Seattle, what you see in Charlotte, North Carolina, Boston, in places that you really see take off. You're utilizing all those assets as one big vehicle.
Thank you. Any other panelists have any comments they want to add on to that? No? Well, let's move on to the city, either Paul or Gillian. I don't know if you caught it fully from the last part of the presentations on the video. They touched on it just briefly, but I'd like them to talk about staffing and talk about that as it relates to the economic development efforts that are being made right now. It's a real challenge right now. But Gillian, why don't we start with you?
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Yeah, it is a real challenge right now, and I know probably a lot of the business owners, as we heard in the videos, are also having staffing challenges. We have to do more with less, and we have to focus on recruiting that workforce that Dr. Eyler was just talking about. So, working in the city manager's office, we are working on some strategies. We've hired a consultant in HR to help us with recruitment. We're trying to get creative. We're working on new remote work policies so we can have a hybrid approach, because as you also heard in the presentation, we're hearing as we recruit that that's a really big deal when we're trying to get people to come to work for the city. So all of these things we're trying to piece together to address it, but again, it's a nationwide issue, and we understand that it's not going to be resolved in a month, but that it's probably something that we're going to have to be working on for several months until we can get to a point where we are at a better staffing level. Fortunately for us and our building official, our building department right now is currently fully staffed. We are so excited. In the 2.5 years that I've been here, it's the first time that we've had all of our building techs, our plan checkers, our inspectors, everybody is fully staffed, and so that is one success that we really do need to celebrate. Yes, thank you, Steve, and Steve's team is great. So we're going to try and emulate and replicate that process throughout the rest of the city.
I'll just tag on quickly that
In the Economic Development Division in the city, we've had as many as 7 employees there. For most of 2021, we had 3 of us. So the workload has been significant and challenging. We're quite fortunate and excited to have a couple of new members in our staff that have come from other cities that have some really good experience. But yet still, I'm not only am I manager in the division, but I'm also our asset and property manager, as well as wearing a lot of other hats. So when you consider sort of the challenge as it relates to the amount of time that it takes to fulfill a lot of those, that impacts our ability to perform, not only to attract businesses, but to support those that are here. Also, as just mentioned, things like staffing in our Planning Development Services Department. We work with a lot of those developers that are looking to wind their way through the process, and being able to have a sustainable but known amount of time to process is key. So that is we're excited, as well as Steve Arnold, that we have full staffing there. There's also programs related to, and one of the reasons why I'm excited about our economic development strategic plan as we move forward. There's real tools that we haven't necessarily taken as much advantage of, whether it's technology, websites, or other elements related to not only helping with our image, with business attraction, but also helping with our business retention programs. And I think those are the things that we can use that really help with that other side of it, which is the staffing challenges.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris, I want to bring you in on this. We talk about the Solano EDC in many different ways, but I was hoping you would take a moment to talk about how the EDC actually interacts with the city when it comes time to, you're out there looking for industries, businesses. So how are you interacting with the city to bring those opportunities that you think might work well for us here?
First of all, I want to say I'm definitely not cut out to be a newscaster. I noticed how much I jerked around in the videos. I'm going to try to sit still while I talk. Probably not going to happen. So I'm relatively new. I'm like 5 weeks into the job. I've been traversing Solano County, meeting with as many people as I can. I've gotten to meet with most of the city managers and the economic development folks. I'm a collaborative person by nature. I really intend on being in conversation with them. I had lunch with David Gastaway, who's the interim city manager in Fairfield today. Everybody that met, these are great people, and they really want to do good things, and I think that there's a role that we play to kind of elevate people out of their own sort of sphere of influence or their own self-interest to sort of look, how do we collaborate regionally? There's a lot of challenges in each of these cities that they all share, and are there opportunities to collaborate? Are there best practices that they can share? Is it the case of just getting together and actually talking to somebody who does the same job and has the same challenges is beneficial? So I want our organization to play that role. It's really just about relationships and actually being in partnership with people, and that's, as I lead this organization, that's what I intend to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, one from the audience, and it's sort of a general question. I'll just open this up to anybody, but what can we do to bring more business to Vallejo? Dr. Eyler, do you want to start?
I think the best thing is to tell stories about how businesses have thrived here and try to sort of say these are the conditions under which these businesses have remained and why they're here. Folks had said it in some of the other pieces besides the boring economist you saw for a while there. One of them is the weather, one of them is the location in terms of the other assets regionally that you can gain access to. So starting with what you have that's differentiable and saying this is where we're going to put investment and this is what we're going to do to try to attract those businesses to utilize those assets, that's really one of the biggest things. A lot of communities struggle to try to figure out how they're different and what assets they have available to make them different, not now, but 5 or 10 years from now, because that's when it really pays off. It's those kind of things, identify that and keep telling stories on a regular basis about why Vallejo is different and different in a positive way for an entrepreneur. And the more you do that, and the more you actually have people, not you as city government or economic development saying that story, but the people who actually have done that and thrived. That becomes a really powerful combination.
And I would just add on, we also can do a lot of activities along the lines of marketing our city. We heard already, right, the weather, awesome place. That's a big attractor. But also working with many of our development community, but more importantly, those that already hold not only properties, but many of the businesses, office space, whether it's industrial zoned or not, that are looking to attract those businesses. So they actually have a really good sense and have done a lot of research, so really collaborating with them. The other thing I'm excited about with Solano EDC as well is there's a real strong element related to workforce development. So I think as we spend and invest time, effort, and resources into not only developing our workforce, but also identifying what we have here, because there's a lot of opportunity to market to businesses to attract them because of what we have here. And really when you see the changes, not only what Dr. Eyler showed, but just sort of the changes in your demographics where people are moving, the identification of your labor asset is a real key element to attracting people.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. I think one of the biggest assets this place has is its diversity. It's the most diverse city in the state of California. And I've lived in the Bay Area twice before. I didn't know that. And I think we need to be shouting that from the rooftops that this is the most diverse city in the state of California. Yeah! Businesses in this climate now are talking about diversity a lot. A lot of times it's, I don't know what the social justice version of greenwashing is, but it's sort of, sometimes it's just talk. And for those of you who are actually interested in doing something, you could say, well, come here, right? We have this diverse population. If you're interested in supporting diversity, support this community. I noticed in the presentation, it looks like there's a lot of cultural festivals that go on. I would lean into that hard. You know, really celebrate the diversity in a very public way, invite people into the city to do it with you, and I think that you will reap rewards from that.
Okay, I'm going to take us back a couple of years. When I first got here, actually it was in 2017, I believe, that the tax cuts introduced the concept of opportunity zones. So the question is, how are opportunity zones driving economic development decision-making by developers and municipalities, and what can still be done given there's a sunset element to the opportunity zones? And anybody can jump in.
Well, clearly one of the key opportunity zones is on Mare Island. I think one of the things that's been challenged as it relates to that has been the investment to clean up the island and the amount of time and effort that it's taken to do that, to allow really for that leveraging. There's a couple of other areas within the city, and I think there's tax breaks. There's also the ability to take advantage of. We just had a meeting with GoBiz again on some of their programs related to employment. In other words, getting a tax break for providing employment within those opportunity zones, as well as some of the manufacturing purchasing credit that you can get. So those are ways to use it. I think in many ways it's been underutilized, but some of that has been because of other constraints.
Dr. Eyler, do you have anything you want to add on that? Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Continue on with Mare Island. We have a question from the audience. How will minorities benefit from the Mare Island project specifically?
Well, one of the things that we're quite excited about as a component of our development agreement on North Mare Island is that there is a local community benefits program that's part of that. If you look at myvallejo.com and look at the DDA, it's actually Exhibit M. So I actually remembered that. I'm surprised. But I think the actual exhibit number. But it talks about the developer and their commitment to not only supporting local businesses as a whole component of local hire, but also minority and women-owned businesses, and just all the different programs that relates to that. And we're also the support to the Solano Workforce Development Board and SBDC as they administer some of those programs.
as it relates to that is also for local bid. There's a local hires thing. So you can just see it all in that section about how that'll impact. So that's both on supporting the businesses, but also related to local hiring.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Quickly, I talked about this in the video. I think you really need to attach people to the results and the outcome in a way that they see that it will benefit them from, and talk about it up front. Say, we're trying to get this auto manufacturer to the island. We know if they come here, there's a local hire component, so there's going to be this many jobs, but also we can forecast, here's how our tax base will grow, and get the politicians out in front to say, we're committed to spending this much of this new tax revenue to help people in this community. It needs to be that level of transparency, and it needs to be making people understand why it benefits them, because if you're so detached from that, you don't understand how you could possibly benefit from that plant coming. So I think communication is important, but definitely just getting people involved in the process.
Thank you. Okay, a couple infrastructure questions, and these are probably Gillian Paul questions. Two things: road conditions and vacant buildings. I'll just hear your comments.
So lots of talk recently about road conditions. If you've been to any of the council meetings or heard any of the public input, it's very contentious. Vallejo is the lowest road quality, right, boss, in the county? Benicia is worse, excuse me. Second lowest. But where we need to be to bring the roads up into the percentile that is acceptable is about 90 million-ish, 70 to 90, depending on how far we go. And that's a big amount. Historically, over the years, council has delegated, over the last several years, $100,000 to $200,000 a year on that program. We don't have the 70 million or the 90 million. This last mid-year budget, they did allocate $500,000, and we're looking at some other options that the council will be talking about here soon. I don't know if I can, just stay tuned to the next council meeting or two. They're going to discuss some options about some revenue generation to address the road situation, and I think it is important in attracting businesses and retaining businesses. Roads and infrastructure are super important. And what was the other one?
Well, vacant buildings. It was mentioned generally, it was pointed at downtown specifically, but when we're talking about economic development, we're talking about the conditions around, right? When a business comes in, they see, are they compelled to or attracted to stay, or are they pushed away?
Correct. So I don't know, Paul, if you want to jump in, but we're talking about using some of our ARPA funding for attraction and retention. We do have a really old downtown specific plan that really needs to be updated. We're looking at doing a new plan, Mare Island-wide specific plan. So these are opportunities for the community to give input and to talk about our vision for the future and how are we going to implement these visions? What steps are necessary? What funding is necessary? What programs are necessary so that we can actually implement and make the changes? I really do think, I call it like the bloom effect. I really do think as we get a waterfront development, some Mare Island development, it's just going to multiply itself throughout the mainland and the island. It's just the impetus. We've been in this kind of frozen stage for so long. But so many things are just on the cusp. We have the northern waterfront, we have the North Mare Island or the Central Mare Island Collie corridor. We have the Sika Hills Cultural Center, wine tasting, food on the waterfront, the big 10-acre, park. We have so many things that are just about to happen, and I feel like it's the domino effect as they begin, and others are coming in. And we saw that. I've been here 2.5 years. Of my first year, we looked at 75 or 80 housing units, and now what did you see? 1,300 and something. So that's just an example of once it gets started, the development dominoes move. I'm watching you, Manny.
Okay, Panelists, talk about the relationship between education, housing opportunities, workforce demographics, and land availability as it relates to economic development. Maybe Dr. Eyler, we can do it.
Do you have 3 hours?
If we can give it in just a minute or two. So basically,
syllabus for a course.
So basically, what's needed most, what's needed first, and is there an optimal combination?
Wow. Well, put it this way. You need to feel like that there's partnership where you go. So if you see all those as sort of different vertices on some geometric shape, that they have to be connected to each other in some way, shape, or form. Missing one of those means you're going to have to import that from some other place. So for example, if you don't have the housing stock, you will struggle to attract, retain certain types of workers in your area. If you don't have workforce development, you'll have to go find that workforce development training some other place rather than having it done indigenously. If you can't find the workers, you'll import them. If you can't find the land, you won't be able to I don't want to double use the word, but you won't be able to attract and retain and expand certain possibilities. So the best economic development scenario has those elements, and they all work kind of hand in glove. And then they have this sort of intangible piece there's this reason why people want to come there and have a business or be engaged in business as a worker. That's the sort of the story of the place. Why is this place different than other places who have exactly the same characteristics or have the ability of the same characteristics? You need to figure out why you're different, because every community in Solano County, every community in Contra Costa County, every community in Napa County has got the same situation they're looking at. In many cases have similar opportunities and challenges with the same assets. What are you going to do this different? That's the key.
I'll just add really quickly, I think we've talked about this before, maybe last year, but there are certain foundational things that we really need to focus on in the city, and I think the council has heard the community, education, crime, facilities, economic development, and we're starting to get creative with the ways that we're addressing these. The council just recently directed staff to hire a youth coordinator. So we don't have the workforce development, let's grow our own. Let's build upon the educational partners we have in the community. Let's start programming at a young age. Let's do internship programs. Let's bring junior hires out to the island to tour different businesses and spark their interest. Let's get the trade schools, let's get the colleges incorporated, and those youth programs there. Bring them out of the crime into the programming and grow our own workforce development. That's a goal, a big goal that we're just starting to work on now.
I'll just add that really housing is a key element to a lot of what we're doing. It's a key element to the revitalization of many areas within our community. If you've looked at it, I think you've heard from our council related to like San Antonio and how they really use housing in their downtown area to revitalize their downtown, and then partnered with many of the universities as it relates to workforce development. So those are the kind of things that are programs that we're looking at that we need to continue to pursue.
Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to try to run through a couple more questions real quick. One from the audience tonight. What is your plan for supporting small businesses? Specifically, how much money is allocated from ARPA funds? Who will manage the programs, and how will they remain fair and equitable? I think you touched on this a little bit in the videos, but if we can expand on that.
I did, but I will expand on it. So we are using about $500,000 worth of ARPA funds to have a small business micro grant program. So basically businesses 20 and under, and then break it out into different amounts. Very similar to the program that we did previously. Just a quick reminder of that slide. It might have gone by really quick, but we had almost 200 applicants for our previous program. We randomly generated numbers and randomly selected those businesses, so there wasn't any particular selection process other than that they had direct COVID expenses. And we funded 42 businesses, so there was a significant number of businesses that needed help. So the plan is for approximately $450,000 worth of grants for specifically for businesses. Again, these micro grant programs, partnering with Solano Workforce Development Board and SBDC to administer that program, and that's going to the City Council on April 12th to kick that off. The second element to that is that we also have added this time around a restaurant resiliency program. So there was a $100,000 grant from the Wells Fargo Foundation. It supported restaurants in Fairfield and in Vallejo. We have, I think, 13 restaurants in Vallejo that participated. So we're going to use some, about $100,000 worth of monies from ARPA to do that kind of program specifically for businesses, restaurants here in the city of Vallejo. So a couple things that not only is we directly, financial support in the case of restaurants purchasing meals and providing that to the needy. So it's a really win-win, keeps them operating and gives them some cash flow. So not only is there financial support, we also have on our contract SBDC to come in and provide even more sort of seminars and help for small businesses. It's hard for a small business owner to come to a seminar, so we're trying to get it directly to them, how you write a business plan and all those other elements. So those are the three main things that we're doing.
Chris? So with the ARPA funding at the county level, same ask, but it's a different pool. We're looking for $2 or $3 million to run a revolving loan fund. I'm talking to all the regional lenders about creating a consortium. So Travis Credit Union, First Northern, West American, and Valley Strong, so that we can take that $2 or $3 million and turn it into like $20 million. And then we can actually do something. And we'd use that first $2 or $3 million as like first loss capital. We definitely want to take some more risky loans and sort of balance out the portfolio. The ARPA money is very prescribed to help minority communities that weren't connected to PPE money because they weren't connected to the right financial institutions. And also there's certain categories, including hospitality and restaurants, that are just eligible right out of the gate. So we'll be supporting businesses with that fund.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of other topics that we haven't touched on that all impact economic development. Public safety, as an example, the homeless encampments, business safety, not just the public safety, but the safety of businesses with their customers. We unfortunately are running out of time. Each of those topics can definitely use several minutes and several responses. So I don't want to leave those short who asked that question. We will do what we can to create some follow-up to the questions we didn't ask tonight. But it is getting close to 8:30, and I did say we're going to have a hard cutoff at 8:30. So as we're coming to a conclusion, I'll start on the end with Chris. Are there any final words you want to leave our guests with tonight about economic development, about Vallejo, Solano County, what's going on now?
Yeah, I mean, I said it in the video, and hopefully you could see genuinely that I am excited. And I'm excited about Vallejo in particular because of the diversity and because of the opportunity here. And it's, I was working a lot in LA prior to coming here on workforce issues, specifically through the lens of equity. And it's something that will always be front and center in the work that we do. I was very clear with the board when they interviewed me that I'm a change maker and equity and diversity are important to me, and I wanted them to know that out front so that they weren't surprised when I got here, and that I would also be in the right place, and they're supportive of that. So I will be a champion, and I'll be here working with you.
So you can see why we're excited about Chris being in Solano, and we're very happy to have him here and look forward to the partnerships. I think the message that the Economic Development Division is really committed to not only the small things, but the big things as it relates to supporting businesses in our community, attracting businesses to our community, and really supporting the employers of our neighbors and our friends, because we recognize the value that it has in our community. And we look forward to not only working with you, with those that are watching, but also our regional partners to implement that.
I'm just going to give a quick shameless plug. I talked about in the video, there's a lot of things coming up March, April, and May as far as development projects and economic starters. And so I really do suggest that any of you have time to be at our council meetings. They start in person March 8th. And March 8th, we will be discussing, speaking of public safety, and public safety building potential the council will be considering. So I do encourage, if that is an important topic to you, come to the meetings. let the council know and speak as a community voice and let them know what you want to see. And then on March 22nd, as I said before, that Tuesday night will be the North Mare Island DDA. Very exciting. It has that Connolly corridor as a first phase project. I think it's a culmination of years worth of work, and I think it's so exciting to be to the point where we will see shovels and dirt moving in the next 12 months. So if our council so chooses to approve this agreement, we're just going to hit the ground running, you guys, and there's really nothing that can stop us envisioning a plan out there for the entire 800-ish acre area is just so exciting to be a part of that process up and coming. And another one, the Economic Development Strategic Plan, I think is amazing. You can be a part of what that map looks like for our city moving forward. So we just encourage you to be part of all of these processes, because the more, the merrier, and the more input we get, the better that the products will be. So thank you all.
And I think one thing to think about is long term. Is that you're not going to fix these things overnight. You're not going to build a brand new Vallejo overnight. But there's so much possibility in this town that if it's harnessed correctly, in 10 years from now, you'll say that we really reversed the last 30 years in 10. That's the type of plan you should be looking to do, and the type of economic development and workforce development synergy you should be looking for is not only what gets you where you want to be in 5 or 10 years. Don't look for it to happen in 5 or 10 months. And don't be so impatient that you just need to have that happen. It's a total failure. But when you get there, it will have changed things in a way that give fundamental foundations for the next 10 or 20 years. That's the critical factor. So be patient, do the right thing. You're going to probably see another recession in the next 10 years in such a way that it'll act like a big headwind on what you thought would should happen. You're going to just barrel right through it and get to the next tomorrow. That's the key, is don't lose sight of where you need to be 10 years from now, no matter what happens.
So please give a round of applause for our panelists. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us here tonight. This is something that I'm really proud to bring to the city of Vallejo. The idea of economic development is a key enough point that we can put entire events around that, and we do it year after year after year. So thank you for staying attached to the chamber. Thank you for being here tonight and for listening all that we have to offer. Keep believing in Vallejo, because it's coming every day closer and closer to reality. So thank you.